Ladies and gentlemen, ready to start. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Long, President and CEO of the Alexandria Chamber of Commerce, and so pleased to have you here tonight. We're very excited about this event. We thank you for coming. We know we have a rarity, the opportunity to have three excellent candidates battling in the primary, and so we're very excited to have them. So again, we're very pleased hosting one of the only mayoral debates in the city. Thank you to our sponsor, the Alexandria Gazette Packet. And I'd like to, in a second, introduce Walter Clark to you, our board chair. But before I do that, I'd like you to make sure you silence your phones and maybe get them out, those who like to tweet. And Walter will lead you through that process, because we're going to have some exciting opportunities for those who are into social media. Again, I hope you enjoy. Also, I hope you receive all the information you need and are able to ask the questions through our social media that you would like to be able to ask. So again, thank you all very much. Vice President of Burke and Herbert, 2015 Board Chair for the Alexandria Chamber of Commerce, Walter Clark. Walter.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much. Again, I'm Walter Clark, the 2015 Chairman of the Alexandria Chamber of Commerce. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all here tonight and for our Chamber's Mayor debate. So we have our three candidates that we're featuring, our Democrat candidates. We have for our next mayor, we have Mayor Bill Ewell, Vice Mayor Allison Silverberg, and we have former Mayor Kerry Donnelly. This is an opportunity for you to hear from each of the candidates, to learn about them and where they stand on business issues that impact the city. Before we get started with the debate, I do want to recognize a few people. Chamber staff, I don't know if they're in the room, but I do want to recognize them and thank them for all that they've done in help putting this together. And also Dak Hardwick, who is on the board of the Chamber, and we appreciate him for helping to lead the coordinating efforts here. And if I could just quickly ask if there are any board members, current board members of the chair, if you're in the audience, please raise your hand. I'd like to always recognize those folks. Any past chairs that we have from the Chamber, please raise your hand. It's great to see you all, and thank you again for being here. So the debate, I'd like to briefly talk about the format for this evening's debate. The debate should be considered a moderator's discretion. The debate rules and time limits are to be structured so that there's lots of free flow for the moderator. So the moderator will be able to ask follow-up questions, and the intent is to make sure that the maximum amount of discussion is had. The moderator will play a true role in guiding the questions. So we look for a nice, lively debate here tonight. So a few rules to go over. So the candidates have been provided with a set of rules, and the debate of our moderator will review those in a moment with you. So those rules the moderator will review with you. In addition to the given number of citizens that we have here in the audience, and we thank you all for spending your evening here with us. Of course, you could be anywhere this evening, but we appreciate you being here at this important event. So rule number one, the Alexandria Chamber of Commerce, we're committed to civility of both the candidates and our audience, and we ask that you do not hiss, boo, clap, or cheer for any issues or questions or responses. Number two, any audience interruption can take and delay the debate and the full participation of this debate to be completed as necessary. We also ask that you respect the people around you, sitting around you, and that you minimize your conversation. And if there's conversation that does need to be had, we kindly ask if you would quietly exit to the auditorium lobby and have those conversations. And our fifth rule, just like at the movie theater, we ask that you silence all phones and beepers. But there is one exception, social networking. So tonight, There's one notable exception in the audience participation in tonight's debate. In a final section of the debate, our debate moderator will take questions directly from Twitter. So debate staff will be monitoring the following hashtag. That's hashtag ACOCdebate. That's hashtag ACOCdebate for debate questions. Questions from Twitter will be provided to the moderator directly with select questions for the candidates. So if there's a question that you're tweeting that you want it to be directed to a particular candidate, please state that in your question. And again, remember the hashtag is ACOCdebate, and we'll be watching this evening for the questions. Now, on with our moderator. I'm excited to introduce our moderator, Mr. Drew Hansen, who's a professional journalist with a decade of experience in covering communities, businesses in Virginia and the greater Washington region. He currently works for the digital producer as the Washington Business Journal, editing and writing content for the journal's website, overseeing social media and assisting the production of the weekly print edition. From 2010 to 2014, Drew was the senior local editor for several patch sites in Alexandria. First, the Del Rey patch, later added Old Town Alexandria patch, and West End Alexandria patch to his responsibilities. In this position, Drew has covered all aspects of the life in Alexandria, from government to crime to business, and education as well. Prior to the patch, Drew worked as a staffer at the Washington Times, the Daily Progress in Charlottesville, and as a sports editor of the Culpeper Star-Exponent. Drew currently lives in North Old Town with his wife, Claire, and he's a graduate of the University of Wisconsin-Madison. All, please give a round of applause to Mr. Drew Hansen.
Alrighty, candidates, we're going to open up with some opening statements. Each candidate will be given up to 3 minutes for an opening statement. Candidates will be shown a 30-second card when there are 30 seconds remaining, 15-second card, and a stop card when time is expired. Out of respect for others, candidates must stop immediately at the end of the 3 minutes. No time extensions will be granted, and I have full discretion to not allow you to finish your thought. So we'll get started with you, Ms. Silberberg. You can open it up.
Okay. Thank you, Drew, and thanks to the Chamber of Commerce for organizing this. I'm Allison Silberberg, the Vice Mayor of Alexandria, and I want to be your mayor. We have a great city, but I believe it can be even better. A few top priorities. First, I believe we must pursue thoughtful, appropriate development that fits in, is to scale, and will protect our neighborhoods and quality of life. That includes everything from the West End to Park Fairfax and Del Rey and Rosemont to Old Town, and where we have historic districts throughout the city especially. We need to protect those. We've inherited those, and we need to safeguard them. Second, the debt. The debt has grown exponentially over the past decade. From 2003 to 2013, it went from 140 million to 530 million. Our service on the debt, or interest on the debt, is about 63 or 64 million a year. These are serious economic challenges that we are facing right now, but we're also facing it with that debt. So we need to look at things differently. We need to diversify our economy and not be so tied to the ups and downs of the federal government. And third, we must rebuild the people's trust. This means more openness and more transparency at City Hall. It means fewer executive sessions. Executive sessions led to the decision for the BRAC building. We don't have a vote or any accountability. And I think that's really a shame, because if it had been shared with the public, then the council would have had the benefit of input from citizens as well as from the media scrutiny. And it's off the tax rolls, the BRAC building. So we're going to lose about $60 million over 20 years, money that we could have used for many other projects. And that's just the first 20 years. So it's really an economic travesty. So these are some of the issues that I'm pressing on. There are many others. I ask for your vote on June 9th, and I'm honored to be with you tonight. Thank you so much.
Mr. Ewell.
Well, thank you very much, and I am Bill Ewell, and I have served my hometown as the mayor of this great city for the past 13 years. And by the way, you are in my 9th grade school. I attended George Washington as a freshman prior to the opening of T.C. Williams, 1965, and I went there as a sophomore. But I'm certainly grateful for the opportunities that serving as mayor has presented to me. Thankful for having the opportunity to work with the great citizens of this city, and thankful for all the support that you've been providing me. I am also grateful for the opportunities that we have been able to, where we've been able to accomplish a lot in the city together over the many years. Certainly, as a native Alexandrian and a small business person, I'm also pleased and proud of the fact of the work that I've been able to do during these challenging economic times, and believe me, they have been difficult. But nonetheless, we've been able to preserve and build a good quality of life for all of our Alexandrians. I have fought to revitalize our neighborhoods and to bring new businesses and revenue to the city, so we can invest in priorities that we feel that are very appropriate for us, in addition to holding the line on taxes. During my tenure, we have built a new high school, a new elementary school. We have also implemented the Children and Youth Master Plan, which is a roadmap for providing enhancing and improving the quality of education throughout this city for our children and their families. I'm pleased and proud of the fact that I've supported the expansion of bike lanes throughout the city to be part of our multimodal transportation system, which is vitally important in terms of moving people throughout the city. Fought to fund new programs for and identified open space and parks, whether it's in Cameron Station, Parker Gray, Potomac Yard, and certainly supported and implemented initiatives for our police department to reduce crime, which is at an all-time 50-year low. So we've accomplished a lot more to do, but certainly pleased and proud of my record, my performance. But more importantly, as a small business person, I'm very pleased and proud that I've had the opportunity for all these many years to be not only a member of the Chamber, but certainly to work with the Chamber of Commerce and advocating on behalf of the small businesses throughout the city and the various communities and neighborhoods, because I believe that the Chamber of Commerce, while a business organization, certainly feels the inspiration to make certain that our communities are part of all of the challenges and the opportunities that we fight for in this city, such as infrastructure, high quality of life. And these are the things that are important. And so I look forward to your questions, and certainly for your vote and support on June 9th.
Mr. Donnelly.
Thank you, Drew. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce and all of you who've come out tonight to listen to the debate. Granted, the Nats aren't playing, so I guess that probably doubled the crowd. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kerry Donnelly. I live in the west end of Alexandria, where my wife Eva and I have raised our 5 daughters. Actually, we graduated our last daughter this weekend from Virginia Tech, and I've spent over 18 years on the council, 8 as the mayor of Alexandria, and my time on council has actually been marked by accomplishment. As the mayor, I fought hard and was successful in bringing the Patent and Trademark Office to the Carlisle section of Alexandria. I worked to resolve the Woodrow Wilson Bridge litigation, much to the benefit of Alexandria. I was the mayor when we built the first new elementary school in Alexandria in over 35 years, Tucker School, and I worked to expand this building to accommodate middle schoolers as well as Francis Hammond on the west end. We also built the new Central Library, Beatley Library, during my time as mayor. One of the things that I think we all share, the vice mayor, the mayor, and myself, is a tremendous love for our city, a love for Alexandria, and we want it to prosper, we want it to be successful. But one of the challenges that we've faced over the last 8 years, is a structural deficit where our expenses are actually exceeding our revenue. Now, I ask you, whether you're a business owner or a household, what would your life be like? What would your business be like if your expenses exceeded your income each and every year? Well, that's what has beset Alexandria over the last 8 years. We have got to increase our revenue base in order for us to provide the services that our citizens both expect and deserve. Now let me give you at least a couple of specific examples where I think we can do a better job. We need to get the Potomac Yard Metro Station back on track. It's 2.5 years behind schedule. And the council is poised to make a decision, but I will pledge to you right now that if I'm elected mayor, we're going to keep that metro station on target for its completion, because it's the single biggest thing we can do to expand our revenue base. When the district added an inline station at New York Avenue, it attracted over $2 billion of private investment, and that's the kind of investment we need here in Alexandria. I think we ought to rebrand and remarket the Carlisle area. I mean, think about it. The Carlisle area of Alexandria is the home of the Patent and Trademark Office. It's also the home of the National Science Foundation, or soon to be home of the National Science Foundation. And it's an opportunity for us to rebrand that as the world headquarters for science and creativity. We also need to establish a big box retail section in West Eisenhower to take some of the big box retail that will be leaving Potomac Yard and staying here in Alexandria. Those are some of my ideas. I look forward to your questions, and I ask for your vote on June the 9th. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We're going to start the first section of the debate. It's going to be about a half hour. In this section, I will be asking you to respond to questions that have been selected based off of the 2015 Alexandria Chamber of Commerce legislative agenda. So without further ado, the first question. Of the potential sites for Potomac Yard Metro Station, Alternative A, an at-grade station closest to the Potomac Greens neighborhood, and Alternative B, an at-grade station closer to the existing Potomac Yard Shopping Center, as well as a no-build option. What's the best course of action? We'll start with you, Ms. Silverberg.
Okay. Well, I believe because of the economic development potential that Alternative B would definitely be the best choice. I think that we all know that mass transit is critical to our city and to the region. And it does bring enormous economic development. We're poised to bring in a great deal of business right there at Potomac Yard, even more business than already is there. So the question is making sure that it fits in, that WMATA understands that we want it to look like it should look, and as it comes into Old Town, as that George Washington Parkway. So that would, to me, that would mean red brick, and that things that are painted are dark green and dark brown. It fits in. It's not sleek and modern and white and steel. It fits in to the landscape, if you will. We must do everything we can to mitigate the impact on the surroundings, so it just fits in. As far as the cost, this concerns me that we're, even as we speak, getting things down to its bare essence. The developer recently called the city manager and suggested that the developer, JBG, was not so interested in fulfilling their obligation. I think we should hold their feet to the fire. They have a legal commitment in writing. It's $10 a square foot or $49 million. And it could go up in value as time goes on, up to 60 to 70 million. We need those funds to make this viable for us, and they've promised it. And of course, NVTA funds, Tiger Grant funds will be going after it and cobbling it all together so that there's less impact on the taxpayer, of course. So that's been my concern, is nailing that down, locking it down for all the taxpayers, all of us, and for the future, for the generations to come. And, but getting people out of their cars, increasing multimodal transportation, having bike share and pedestrian walkways to and from there at the Potomac Yard Metro will be critical.
Mr. Ewell.
Well, thank you, Drew, and that's a very important question. I'm pleased and proud of the fact that for more than 14 years, I have represented the city of Alexandria on the WMATA Board of Directors, and that's our Metro bus and rail system, and certainly been a strong advocate for transit needs not only in Alexandria but throughout the entire region, because we know that that's having Metro is the economic engine that drives the regional economy for all of us. But more importantly, I also have served for many years on the North Virginia Transportation Commission, served both as treasurer, Vice Chairman and Chairperson, and currently served as Vice President of the Virginia Transportation Authority, which is the regional body that has the authority to appropriate funding from the state transportation dollars to the jurisdictions here in Northern Virginia. And so I will be pleased and proud on Wednesday evening, tomorrow evening, May 20th, to cast a vote in support of Alternative B to build a new metro station stop in Potomac Yard. Long overdue. Certainly the conversation, the discussion about a metro rail station in Potomac Yard started back in the 1975 timeframe when it was identified as an appropriate land use area for a metro station. And then there have been studies after studies in terms of trying to evaluate the economic benefits, whether this is good or bad or not. And certainly the community as well as the city councils, prior city councils, have endorsed and supported it as we approved a concept plan for the build out of Potomac Yard. And so the time is now to build a station. Yes, it may be a couple of years past due, but you know, nothing happens overnight. As a matter of fact, there are 5 entities involved in having a say in the process of the environmental EIS process. And so that's the city government, it's the citizens, it's the WMATA, it's the National Park Service, and it's the Federal Transportation Administration. And so when you got these many parties engaged in a process trying to develop an outcome and to make things happen, again, it doesn't happen overnight. The reality is that we really wanted to have the public process. A lot of community input has taken place to get us to the point in terms of where we are. And certainly the station will not only generate 26,000 new jobs, but 7,100 housing units, in addition to 7 million square feet of new development to be built in Potomac Yard that will generate close to $2 billion over the 30, 40 years to the local economy. That is good news, and pleased and proud, as I said, tomorrow night to, along with my colleagues, to support the approval of Alternative B.
Mr. Donnelly.
Thank you, Drew. I also have been a major proponent of Potomac Yard Metro Station. I mentioned it in my opening statement because I think it is the single biggest thing that we can do, the single biggest project we can do to expand our tax base and provide the kind of revenue that we need. I, too, like the Vice Mayor and the Mayor, will support candidate Bill B. Although both of them are so closely aligned, I mean, either one would probably work. Either A or B, but I do think the economic benefit is greater with B. I do think it's real important that we as citizens look at the Potomac Yard Metro as really sort of a cog in the wheel of where we want to be, 15 years from now. It's that kind of vision that I think you'll want from a mayor. And we have to rely on smart growth development. In a city as densely populated as Alexandria, we have to put our development where it's appropriately planned and where it's supported by existing infrastructure or planned new infrastructure like the metro station. When we brought the Patent and Trademark Office to Alexandria, it's supported by 2 metro stations. It's also at the confluence of a number of major routes of transportation with the Capital Beltway. It's also served by VRE. And that's smart growth development. And that development alone, the Patent and Trademark Office, just in the real estate taxes it pays, is $15 million to the city on an annual basis. Now, I dare say that they don't consume $15 million worth of services. And that's the kind of smart growth development that we need if we're going to solve the financial problem that has beset the city for the last 8 years. We've had an unfortunate set of experiences where development wasn't appropriately planned, where it's cost other levels of government, particularly the federal and state government, $150 million in different transportation improvements because the building wasn't in the right place. But we need to rely on smart growth development, both at Potomac Yard, where it's been appropriately planned, but also in East Eisenhower and the Carlisle area, as well as West Eisenhower. And I'm sure we'll be talking about those development opportunities later tonight.
Thank you, candidates. For my next question, I'm going to start with you, Mr. Donnelly. What is your idea of economic development, and who should be involved in that process?
Say it again?
What is your idea of economic development, and who should be involved in that process?
Well, I mean, I think I've already talked about how I think the city needs to rely on smart growth development. One of the important aspects about any organization, whether it's a business, whether it's your household, or quite frankly, whether it's the city of Alexandria, is that you need to establish a clear set of priorities. you know, if everything's a priority, you don't have any priorities because everything's a priority. And so I would want to concentrate our economic development efforts in Potomac Yard, where, again, it can be supported by the Potomac Yard Metro Station. The Washington, D.C., again, did it. It attracted over $2 billion of private investment. That's the kind of smart growth development that we hear about. In addition, we also need to focus on the Carlisle area. Again, it's an opportunity for us to attract, you know, more commercial office in a place that it can be appropriately supported by metro stations, by routes of transportation, by metro bus, dash bus, as well as VRE. And again, out in the western part of the city, West Eisenhower, an interim plan very similar to Potomac Yard, the Potomac Yard Retail Center, I think is a good candidate location, again, supported by a metro station and 2 interchanges with the Beltway. And the nice part about that is it keeps a lot of the crosstown traffic to our south, because it'll be off the Beltway, on the Beltway, and we don't have to deal with a lot of crosstown traffic. And in terms of who needs to be involved, I think all facets of our community need to be involved in our economic development plan and our economic development priorities. You know, we are guided by the Economic Development Partnership. I sit on that board. When I was the mayor, I chaired that board. Unfortunately, you know, the mayor has not been part of that particular organization for a long time. But I think those are the professionals that will help guide our activities. But we also need to engage our business community and our citizenry as well. You know, when I was the mayor, we implemented a program called the Economic Development Summit, where citizens, business leaders, city staff all came together and discussed what we thought were good economic endeavors for the city. And basically, we established a set of clearly identified priorities. We not only established those priorities, we set a timeline for their achievement, and we decided what organizations, whether it's the city government, whether it's the chamber, whether it's the Economic Development Partnership, who would be responsible for achieving those objectives, and we held them accountable. I mean, that's the kind of priority setting I think we need to take, where we involve a variety of elements in our community to determine our economic development priorities. I've talked about a number of mine. I do have some specific ideas, and quite frankly, I think that's what you want in a mayor. You want a mayor who's got an idea about where this city needs to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, and not in 12-month chunks of time.
Mr. Ewell, what is your idea of economic development? Do you agree with some of Mr. Donnelly's sentiments there?
Well, Mr. Donnelly and I don't differ an awful lot in terms of what is the right type of economic development for the city or not. Certainly we may differ in terms of process and procedure. Yes, and when I first got on the City Council in 1994, I too served on the Economic Development Partnership Board, and I served on that board for a long time, and it actually went through various reconstitutions in terms of its structure and format. And then in 2006 timeframe, we did a review of the organization, the operation, and concluded that rather than having politicians, and the mayor and the member city council serving on that body, it was appropriate that we expanded the opportunity to have more input from the business community, open up those 2 seats, plus expanded the board organization to add more business representation, and let the business community advocate on behalf of what would be appropriate economic development initiatives for the city, but not foregoing the fact that the mayor is the face of the city and certainly a strong advocate for economic development, which I've been doing since my tenure in 2003. I think not only being the mayor, but the fact that I get to be very high profile and visible, serving as a strong participant in the U.S. Conference of Mayors, having an opportunity to travel throughout the country for conferences and conventions, and to help promote and market the city, but more importantly, serving as president of the Virginia Municipal League, which represents 329 cities and counties across the Commonwealth of Virginia. All of those things, when you do those things, help to promote Alexandria, market it, and create an attractiveness for not only businesses to come here, but tourism and everything else. certainly all part and parcel of all of the economic development initiatives and opportunities is to continue to redevelop and build out Potomac Yard, get that metro station there, and it will happen and will be open by 2018. That's a fact. In addition to that, certainly for more than 40 years, and Mr. Donnelly, while he was mayor, had an opportunity to bring closure to the waterfront process. That didn't happen. It happened working with myself as the mayor, worked with my colleagues in the community to ensure that our waterfront was going to indeed be redeveloped, and that's moving forward, and we've already just approved phase 2 of that process. Landmark Mall redevelopment is very vital and essential to the west end of the city. We've always looked at the west end, and certainly as the council approved the West Beauregard small area plan, that was also going to be an area that will be ripe for redevelopment and provide some economic benefits not only to the west end residents, but to the city as a whole. And the West Eisenhower planning process, which is already underway and will certainly be can be enhanced and benefit from having not only a transitway corridor, but it has a metro station both at Van Dorn and Eisenhower stations already today, but to provide some connectivity and street grid to move people throughout that whole Eisenhower corridor. Certainly in terms of being visionary, to fill up some of the first ground floor office space that exists in buildings, whether it's in Carlisle or along Eisenhower Avenue or even in Old Town. We need to take advantage of the opportunities to attract IT companies, cybersecurity companies, and by the way, the cyber companies are coming here almost on a daily basis. Working with the Chamber of Commerce, I know that for a fact because I get invited to participate in many of the ribbon cuttings for these new ventures that are coming to the city, and they're pleased to come here because they want to be close to the nation's capital because of the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, but like companies want to be next door to where other companies that are in this market exist. Tourism, huge economic development initiative. Been a strong advocate, supporter for that, and part of tourism certainly that we've addressed is promotion of the city as an eco-friendly city, having the trolley system. That was an idea of mine that my colleagues on City Council and the tourism office bought into. To date, that trolley system, 3.5 years old, has carried almost 4.6 million passengers. It runs up and down the King Street corridor, and it's free, environmentally friendly. That's very, very important. I talked about the waterfront already in terms of the advantages and opportunities just redeveloping the waterfront brings to the entire city as a whole. And we also Mr. Donnelly made mention about his task force. I created Mayor's Task Force in Economic Development as we were going through the rough time of the recession and wanted to have the citizens and business community come together to identify ways that we can recover. And certainly this task force came up with 100 recommendations, including redevelopment of Landmark Mall, doing the waterfront, metro station at Potomac Yard, building density around our metro stations. All of these things, believe it or not, 100 recommendations, and the community was part of the engagement process. This government, under my leadership, has implemented, if not 99%, 100% of every one of those recommendations. So we're on a good footing, strong financial basis as a result of the advocacy for economic development. Can we do more? Of course, we can always do more. That's very, very important. But you know,
please finish your thought, Mr. Yule.
Excuse me?
Please finish your thought, Mr. Yule.
Support. I don't think the mayor needs to be on the economic development partnership board. The mayor and whomever is the mayor, in terms of leadership responsibility, just needs to be out there advocating on behalf of the city as a whole and attracting business to the city. Thank you.
Ms. Silverberg, again, what in your opinion, I'm sorry, what is your idea of economic development and who should be involved in that process?
Okay. Well, as far as economic development, I've said many times, I do believe we need to continue to make every effort to grow the commercial tax base. And we need to do it in a balanced way that keeps in mind our neighborhoods and our historic districts and what is special about our city. Economic development is critical because there's too much weight on on all of us who are paying taxes as property owners. The residential side obviously outweighs the commercial tax base. So that's 70-30. We need to get it closer to 50-50. So that structural imbalance is a big part of what we need to look at as a city, as a community, to come together. But in terms of economic development, there are some incredible opportunities at Eisenhower West, and I've served on the Eisenhower Partnership, and former Mayor Donnelly as well. And it's so incredible what could be in that neighborhood. There is a metro stop, of course, and it's underutilized. But we have to have a vision for something that's mixed use, light industrial use, and then, of course, connecting it to where the NSF and PTO are going to be at the other end of Eisenhower, where there are 2 metro stops nearby. This is a part of the city that is definitely going to be growing in the coming years, and it is exciting. But as far as who is involved, first and foremost, I believe we have to involve the residents. We have to hear not from the residents when the development plan comes through the process at the Planning Commission and then to Council, but work upstream and encourage the residents to work upstream. And where we've seen that recently, which is very exciting, is in North Old Town. North Old Town gathered together, did a survey on their own, presented the council the survey results. While they would like to see some mixed use, they really emphasized having a lot of open space there. It's a big part of the waterfront. Clearly, we have to clean up the mess that GenOn plant will leave behind. But again, it was the citizens who came forward and led the way to get that plant closed. So first and foremost, let's have much more civic engagement upstream as the process is beginning, and have those conversations in an ongoing way. And I definitely listen to the citizens and want all of our neighborhoods to be protected and to build in some development, but have it in a way that's balanced and fits in and is to scale. In addition to that, you all might know that this council, we were the ones that made a very proactive approach to bring the National Science Foundation to the city, and I'm very proud of this council for doing that. I think it's going to be a tremendous boon to our city. We need to bring other science-oriented entities to the city. We need to encourage entrepreneurship in the city. We have Port City Brewery, it's a great example, but we could have other craft breweries, especially there at Eisenhower West. But it's also, we need to encourage the arts. The arts makes a lot of sense. We have a lot of arts here. The Torpedo Factory is one example, but we can be even more of an arts destination. And we know that it really brings in a lot of dollars. But the historic district, I believe we need to, all of us, pull together and continue to protect it for the generations to come, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it also is an economic engine of our city. Millions of people come to our city every year and spend money to be part of that.
Thank you.
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. The next question, as I think we all know, there's a large casino that's being built across the Potomac River. We'll start with you, Mr. Ewell. Do you envision it having a dramatic impact on Old Town, specifically Old Town businesses, and what kind of impact is this casino going to have?
Well, the one thing I can tell you, everyone, don't just rest assured that we will not duplicate or replicate by what they're doing across the river to have a casino in Alexandria.
That's for sure. No one's advocating for a casino.
That won't happen. But no, it's a very good question, because I remember, I've been the mayor. Was during the point in time when the National Harbor Resort was evolving and so forth, and there was an awful lot of concern on the part of the businesses, particularly in Old Town, restaurants, bars, the hoteliers, the retailers, that this magnificent, huge development was going to just come. First of all, it was going to take our workforce away, it was going to take our business away, and so forth. And I rallied support with the Alexandria Tourism Office, the the Restaurant Association, and with the several small business owners, including the Chamber. And we sat down and actually had conversation and dialogue about the pros and cons of this new development, what the impacts would be. But more importantly, I reached out to the owner of the development, Peterson Companies, and the Gaylord Hotel, because their folks were actually staying in our hotels in Alexandria because they didn't have a place to stay at the harbor. And so we started having conversation and dialogue about what are some of the benefits, what kind of synergy, what kind of collaboration could take place. And they were very engaging and inspiring to agree that that our business community should not be threatened by the online of this new development. And so, as a matter of fact, we actually had a series of workshops with our businesses in Old Town in particular to talk about National Harbor, to the point that everyone came to realize, you know what, this isn't going to be harmful after all. As a matter of fact, it's a good thing, and it has been a good thing for not only National Harbor, but for the city of Alexandria. We've seen our hotel occupancy rates certainly sustain and maintain themselves. The restaurants and retailers did not lose customers, nor did they lose any employees. And so all in all, the National Harbor Project has been good for Alexandria and the entire Washington, D.C. metropolitan region. Likewise, I, as the chairman of the board of the Washington Metropolitan Area Council of Governments, we actually had had discussion about the casino coming and what would be the benefits and the downside. We concluded that that casino, certainly while in Maryland, would be an economic boom to this entire region. We all benefit by having that casino there. And as a matter of fact, one of our businesses that operate the water taxi service, they have an opportunity to expand their fleet of boats to run that taxi service over to the casino, since the casino, I believe, will be operating on a 24/7 basis to carry people back and forth. But right now, one of the challenges for that whole development over there is that they lack transit. And so having the water taxi service expansion would also relieve traffic congestion on the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, so that cars won't have to line up going to the casino, but more importantly, they can have the opportunity to commute over to that development via our water taxi service. And there's also conversation ongoing now with WMATA, with Prince George's County, and actually the city of Alexandria has been party to the conversation in terms of addressing future transit across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. Bear in mind, the bridge was designed when it was first built to accommodate transit at a future date, light rail across that bridge. And so is it going to happen today, tomorrow? No. It may be another 5-10 years away, but that conversation and dialogue is commencing as we speak.
Mr. Donnelly.
I think it's going to be real hard for us to look out in the future and have an idea of what the casino is going to bring to Alexandria with any degree of certainty. I do think it is an opportunity. I think the mayor is correct that we can't rely on people traveling from either National Harbor or the casino by vehicle. Our streets can't accommodate it, certainly in Old Town, and so utilization of the water taxi, which has been successful, utilization of bus, either charters or some type of bus service, and it does lack transit infrastructure, at least at National Harbor. It is an opportunity for us to capture some of that business. It's an opportunity with the development of the waterfront plan. There will be 2 smallish boutique type hotels on the waterfront that will handle some of the, potentially handle some of the capacity for, folks who might want to go to National Harbor or go to the casino. I'm not a gambler, so I've never even been in a casino, so I'm not really sure how they work. But sort of. I'm a pretty boring guy, I guess, but I think that there are some opportunities. You want to bet on this race? Huh? You want to bet on this race? No. Yeah, I would. But I don't know that we can tell with any degree of certainty. I do think there are opportunities for us to bolster some of our retail activity in terms of shopping, bolster some of our restaurant activity, but we need to be smart about it, get people onto the water taxi, get people onto transit as they come to Alexandria. I do want to turn my attention a little bit to the mayor's economic sustainability task force. The mayor talked about we implemented 99% of the goals. Well, one of the goals that wasn't implemented was the primary goal, and that was to get a 50-50 balance between commercial and residential. And if actually it's gotten worse. The vice mayor mentioned it as that would be a good thing for us to achieve, and I think that's correct. But we're actually at 70-30, and the byproduct of that is reduction in services, which we've seen, and an increase in taxes. The average residential home in the city of Alexandria over the last 3 years, the average has gone up $700. And so we're actually sort of paying more for less because of this structural deficit that I've talked about. We've got to get that in balance, and the mayor has to be part of that discussion. It has to be part of the debate. Being the mayor is not just showing up for ribbon cuttings. Being mayor is part of establishing the strategy. Being mayor is part of implementing that strategy. Being mayor is part of working hand in hand, not just with the Economic Development Partnership, but with the Chamber of Commerce and our civic groups to make sure that we get the kind of economic development that will sustain us over time. Again, I think you want a mayor that has a vision for where we want to be 5, 10, 15 years from now.
Ms. Silver, let's bring it back to the casino across the river. Have you ever been to a casino?
Tell the truth.
Yes, no, I'm trying to think.
But
I've never
again,
been to Vegas, but I visited cousins in Atlantic City,
okay.
and
yes. What impact do you see the casino, the MGM, having on Alexandria, Old Town businesses?
Okay. Well, let me just mention that Atlantic City it was kind of sad, actually. So, but I had a great time with my cousins. But but National Harbor, I just want to say something about National Harbor in general. And I, wish Mr. Peterson all the best, but we're not anything like National Harbor. We never have been, and I hope we never are in Old Town. And I think that's what the mayor's, whoever's mayor brings to the table and to the city is that vision, and that sets that tone and agenda. National Harbor, I remember many years ago in the, I guess, early to mid 2000s, and someone on council and we were talking at a party, and I said something about National Harbor, and it was sort of a mirage at this point. I don't know what year that was, but it was in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, and they said, well, we're going to have to compete with it. And they were very serious. And I turned to that person who I'd known for a long time, and I just said, no, we won't. We're not like that. We're Old Town. Right here on the waterfront is Old Town Alexandria. Now, I do favor getting rid of the warehouses. I think we all do. But how we develop them, what we put there, how it looks, how it feels, how it fits into the historic district of Old Town Alexandria, that's what we need to be looking out for. It shouldn't look or feel like something new, which is National Harbor. So I think that that's fine. We should look for something new and modern and sleek at Landmark Mall, and I would support that fully, and I have supported that. But as far as National Harbor and the casino, if we stick to who we are, if we know in our core who we are, then that doesn't change who we are. So just because they build that, we have to stay authentic and true to ourselves and true to our core values. And that's fine. Gambling is fun. I've been to horse track races and et cetera. It's the Preakness or whatever. It's fun. But that's not what this is about. This is about, it's fine for them over there, and that's great. I wish them well. But in terms of what we are, people come to us for an authentic experience and to treasure the historic preservation. And we should treasure that and maintain it for the generations to come.
Candidates, we're running out of time in this section. I just wanted to ask one quick question, and I want to hear your 3 priorities in terms of infrastructure projects in the next 5 years. Just give me those 3 priorities, just bullet points, real quick. We'll start with you, Ms. Silverberg.
Well, clearly, well, after Potomac Yard, Potomac Yard Metro, at putting that aside, of course, assuming that goes through, the sewage issue, the stormwater issue, the outflows into the Potomac, we've got to fix that. Of course, it's mandated, but it's also the right thing to do. It's unbelievable, but we have to plan for it and fix these two, the sewage and the stormwater issue, over time, so it's amortized and so that the taxpayers, so that we as taxpayers can work on that. These are issues that have been facing the council for
bullet points,
many.
Ms. Silverberg.
Sorry.
Bullet points.
All right, just let me finish my sentence.
Okay.
That we have to face it, and we have to face it over many years, but we should do it in a holistic way. As we're going down into the bowels of the city, we should work on other projects, whether that's IT and broadband, et cetera. So those are my bullet points.
Mr. Donnelly.
3 bullet points real quick. Potomac Yard Metro is our top priority. It's got to be the top priority in terms of infrastructure. Second would be the high capacity transit corridors that have already been identified both along Route 1 going west to the west end of the city of Alexandria along either Duke Street or Eisenhower, and then the Beauregard corridor. I think it's important that everybody understand that well over half the population lives west of Quaker Lane, and it has less in the way of transit services. We need to serve those residents. Third would be the combined sewers, and I think we can partner with Alexandria Renew as both an entity that probably brings a lot of expertise to the table to help us solve the combined sewer overflow problem that we have in the city, and also potentially be one of our funding partners. They're not going to be able to solve the problem totally in terms of financially, but they could certainly be a funding partner so that it doesn't fall solely on the backs of residential and commercial real estate owners.
Mr. Ewell.
I certainly agree with Mayor Donnelly in terms of the 3 top items, sewers, the Potomac Yard Metro Station, and the transit corridors. Very important in terms of economic development, but also moving people and cars and vehicles in a safe manner. But I also want to pick up on the imbalance between commercial and residential in terms of diversifying our tax base. Certainly that is a goal that the city has strived for in the past, and it's a goal and a vision of mine and my colleagues on city council. But the reality of it is that the market conditions have not been there for the last 4 or 5 years, and as a matter of fact, they're not going to be there for the next 3 to 5 years. We have 18% vacancy in commercial office space throughout this entire region. There's 3 million square feet of office space that's sitting out there that's already constructed, that's sitting empty. 2.5 million additional square feet of office space in the pipeline, and the bottom line here is that we've not only have we gone through a recession, but we've had from 2005 to 2010, but we've also had sequestration, we've had government cutbacks in contracts. All of these things are not normal conditions. If they were, certainly I would agree with Mr. Donnelly and anyone else in the room that says that, hey, you know, we have an opportunity here, but the opportunity hasn't been there. But the good news is that despite all those challenges, this city for the past 13 years under my leadership and working with my colleagues on city council, we have consistently gotten a double AAA bond rating from Wall Street. That is not something that you take that's given for granted. You have to earn it.
Thank you, candidates. We're going to move on to section 2 now. These are questions solicited from the Chamber of Commerce members via survey. We're going to start the first question here. Back in 2010, a proposed commercial add-on tax to fund transportation products was voted down by City Council. I believe Alexandria is just about the lone jurisdiction in the region without one. If elected, is a commercial add-on tax still on the table? We'll begin with you, Mr. Ewell.
If elected, it's currently not on the table, and it certainly is not something that I will bring forward as the mayor. As a matter of fact, we had a long and very positive and fruitful conversation and discussion about that opportunity. We actually had a lot of engagement with the Chamber of Commerce and the rest of the business community and the citizens as a whole. And we felt that at that time that was not something that Alexandria needed to have an additional tax burden placed upon our business community. Fortunately, the state has appropriated funds to the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority. Again, I serve as vice chairman in that body, and that will generate between $250 to $300 million annually that comes here to Northern Virginia to be then redistributed back to the various localities to meet their transportation needs. That is 30% of those funds can be used locally on projects. The other 70% funds must be used for regional transportation and transit, like building bridges and roads, but hopefully less bridges and roads and more transit.
Mr. Donnelly, I believe you were a proponent of the commercial add-on tax.
Well, I certainly proposed it to begin the discussion. You know, for a couple of years when I was on the council as the vice mayor, the council had not really had a full-blown discussion on the commercial add-on tax, and you know, I proposed it to have that discussion. You know, this was back at a time when, you know, the General Assembly hadn't enacted the transportation funding. We had not seen any transportation funding. As a matter of fact, our urban dollars that go to our street maintenance had dried up to zero, and we needed to do something at the local level to show some initiative. I proposed it because I wanted to have that discussion. We had that discussion. We worked with the chamber to discuss the merits of a commercial add-on tax. It's not on the table now because, quite frankly, the General Assembly has acted, and now we have the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, which was created many, many years ago, and now they actually have some money to do some things. But I think it was important to have the discussion so that we could talk with our citizens, we could talk with our business organizations, and I give credit to the chamber for sort of hosting a lot of that debate and certainly coming forward with their position. We were able to not only not do the commercial add-on tax, but we did do a set-aside for sorely needed transportation dollars in the city that was originally devoted to capital. And I was able to build a coalition. I was able to build a coalition that actually had one of the Republican members of the council at that time, Frank Fannin, actually make the motion to raise the tax rate in order to have the transportation set aside. And these dollars are being used today largely for a lot of the infrastructure, sidewalk and street maintenance that is so sorely needed in the city. Again, it's not on the table any longer because the General Assembly, after decades, has finally acted and brought some transportation dollars to Northern Virginia. But it was an important debate to have, and it allowed us with the flexibility to meet a lot of our infrastructure needs because, quite frankly, the state wasn't going to do it, so we had to take the initiative and do it ourselves, and we opted to do it with a broad base set aside in terms of what's today called the TIP, or the Transportation Improvement Program.
Ms. Silverberg, would you consider a commercial add-on tax?
Well, thank you, Drew. First of all, I didn't realize that Mr. Donnelly, that you had proposed it, but until now. But I remember that conversation very well, and while everything can be considered, I don't support it. I think that businesses are still struggling. We need to do everything we can to help businesses thrive or streamline the process to help them start a business. It's hard. It's very hard, and I know that my father had a business, my uncle had a business, my grandfather. I come from a family of folks who run businesses, and it's just you know, when during this council, it was discussed about the parking meter expansion, not only in Old Town but in the Carlisle area, and I vigorously opposed it. And I was the lone dissenting vote on that, and I think now the council might be reconsidering that position because they see that it's had a negative impact on businesses. But it's very obvious that you can't have people go into a restaurant in Old Town and come out with a ticket on their windshield. They're not going to come back. So we need to do everything we can to be open for business and to be welcoming to people. We spend money enforcing our parking meters and adjudicating all that, and we have to be, we have to think about those things. But also in terms of our economics, just like all of us, when we go to a store, we have to talk about what's mission critical. We can't do everything that we want to do in our homes, in our lives, and certainly not in the city. We can't do it all at once. We have to talk about what is mission critical. And that's what I do when I go to Target almost every week. And if I have to just get what I need and not just what I want. So we're going to have to talk about what's absolutely critical to the city, and we have to maintain our infrastructure. Thank you.
This next question is for you, Mr. Donnelly. You've expressed a concern over the imbalance of commercial versus residential development in Alexandria. Given that much of the residential development over the past 2 decades was approved during your tenure as mayor, do you shoulder some of the blame?
Much of the residential development was over the last 10 years. I haven't been
2 decades. 2 decades.
Okay, I haven't been in. I haven't been at least as the mayor since 2003. So, I mean, if you want to put it on me, quite frankly, I was the guy who brought the Patent and Trademark Office to Alexandria. I was one of the folks who helped broker bringing the National Science Foundation. In fact, I was actually invited by the mayor and the vice mayor to come to their executive session to brief them on the National Science Foundation because I understood how critical it was. I think that it's a little difficult to say here, I'm going to shoulder the blame for the residential development that's occurred. Quite frankly, I wasn't around during much of the last 20 years or the last 10 years where development special use permits for a lot of the residential development was approved. I think if you look at my record, you'll see that I was successful in bringing significant commercial development to Alexandria. I've talked about the importance of the Patent and Trademark Office and what it does, how it works economically. It does not consume the kinds of services that residential development does, and worked on the National Science Foundation. Want to work hard. I've been talking about the Potomac Yard Metro Station for the last 3 years. It's the single biggest thing we can do, and we spent time, studying whether we should move the CSX tracks at the Potomac Yard when, one of the biggest federal procurements in recent years, TSA, was looking to come to Alexandria. It's a missed opportunity because none of the Potomac Yard Metro, or none of the Potomac Yard properties could bid on that because they didn't have a metro station. It's a missed opportunity. We have to avoid missed opportunities. We have to maximize our priorities. We have to focus on our energies on Potomac Yard. We have to focus our energies on Carlisle. We have to focus our energies on West Eisenhower, where that development makes sense. And this is, I think, where the Vice Mayor and I actually sort of agree a little bit. I want to bring smart growth development where it can be supported by existing infrastructure. That's the best way for us to protect Old Town, quite frankly, is to put development where it needs to be. Old Town is not going to be, it is a crown jewel, there's no doubt about it, but it's not going to be the economic engine that's going to solve our problems as it relates to the structural deficit that we exist today. We're only going to get that if we concentrate the development where it is planned and where it can be supported by existing infrastructure, such as Potomac Yards, such as Carlisle, such as West Eisenhower.
Ms. Silberberg, Mr. Ewell, any response to that?
Yeah, my response to Mr. Donnelly with regards to the delay of the Potomac Yard Metro Station stop was because we spent too much time dealing with the CSX track issue. Mr. Donnelly realizes that when we formed the Potomac Yard Implementation Work Group that I appointed him to that body because of his background experience, not only having previously been mayor, but certainly serving on other transportation bodies like the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission and NVTA. But he also is fully cognizant of the fact that it wasn't that the city was supporting the CSA track issue, but it was a requirement and request of the Federal Transit Administration that we must take a look at that option, that alternative, as part of the EIS, Environmental Impact Study process. And yes, it took longer than anticipated, but the mere fact is that that was a request, and nothing else was going to happen to move that project any faster until we took all of those options into consideration. But With regards to housing, Mr. Donnelly, I don't know whether decades ago how long he, whether he was, you want to put the fault or blame on him, but certainly he was mayor for 8 years prior to, almost 8 years prior to my becoming mayor in 2003 when he retired from the city council. And then he came back on for 3 years within the last 13 years. So I think the reality is that, that, you know, again, the structural imbalance is not something that either he can take blame or fault for, success for, or even me, but it's really driven a lot by the economy in terms of what was happening and what was not happening. And certainly when I got elected to city council in 1994, one of the first things that former Councilman Lois Walker and I did with Mayor Donnelly was to suggest that we find a way to increase, we had an imbalance between renters and home ownership here in the city, and we wanted to find a way to allow for residents to have more investment in their community and in the city. And so we advocated for not only more affordable housing initiatives, but a home ownership. And it was through our planning and collaboration that we created the city's first home ownership fair that ran very successfully for more than 10 years. And so by doing that, what were we doing? We were actually trying to get more residential, more people in home ownership opportunities and so forth. But that didn't create the imbalance. The imbalance comes as a result of really what is happening or not happening in the economy. It's a market-driven condition. Mr. Donnelly's a banker. He knows that. And certainly if it weren't for the downturn in the economy, I think we would have we would have been closer to having and reaching the goal of at least having a 50-50 balance between commercial and residential.
Ms. Silverberg, did you have anything to add?
Well, let me just respond to a couple of different things. First of all, I think as far as affordable housing, many people know that we had about 18,000 market rate affordable housing units in 2003, and 10 years later, in 2013, it was about 6,000 or 5,000 market rate affordable housing units, and it's less than that after we take into account Beauregard. So as that changes. So I think that that's an issue. Businesses want to come to our community. They need to have a workforce that's ready to go. It's not really affordable housing anymore, it's workforce housing. So teachers, only 11% of our city staff can afford or can choose to live in the city. That's a real shame, because when you go to the grocery store, it's nice to run into your child's third grade teacher or run into an officer or something. So it's I think that's difficult. As far as residential development, I live in Park Fairfax, and I've lived there since 1992, and I love it. But today, would it be built? I don't think so. And all that open space, all that greenery, and so people would spend more to be able to face open space and greenery. I think they would have spent more if at Potomac Yard. It would have shown more vision, frankly, when they developed all those townhomes along Howell and Custis or whatever in Potomac, in the new Potomac Yard development. Instead of having townhouse after townhouse with little strips of grass the size of this table, if we'd had a lawn, if we'd set aside 10 or 15% of land, people would have paid more to face the green space right there. And in fact, when I met with some people from Potomac Yard last week, I mentioned this, and they all said they absolutely would have paid more to face the green lawn. A lack of open space, it's a quality of life issue. So yes, we need to have more commercial development, but our residential development, when it's built, it has to be visionary, and it has to maintain that quality of life. And I think that was a lost opportunity.
Ms. Silverberg, this next question was submitted for you. You've used these words tonight, and you touched on it just a second ago. You've used these words earlier tonight, and thoughtful, appropriate development throughout your campaign. Can you provide an example of what, in your opinion, is thoughtful and appropriate development?
I think Park Fairfax is thoughtful and appropriate development. Park Fairfax has.
But in the currently, what's coming through the pipeline? What's passed through in your 3 years on as vice mayor?
Well, as far as, I fully supported the National Science Foundation coming, absolutely, and I'm glad you came to speak with us, Mr. Donnelly, but I have friends who have worked there for many years and are now retired, or some still work there, and so from the very beginning of it, I was definitely for it. So, I think we had to meet many times as a council about that and think about how we were going to strategize to get them here, and that was tough. Those were tough decisions that we made as a council this time. So, but it was definitely a team effort, and I'm glad that the AEDP stepped up and was such a part of it, and I recognize that and applaud them, and I appreciate all that they do. I definitely want development. Robinson Terminal South was a prime example of where we missed an opportunity. It could have been something that looked like the historic district. It could have been something that fit in and was to scale, but now it's going to be this very large, sleek, modern, contemporary set of buildings. A lot of people praised number 2 Duke because it looks old, and it is old, frankly, and we're going to maintain it. But you know what? A lot of the structure at Robinson Terminal South could have fit in just like number 2 Duke. And the architecture is the opposite, and that's a real shame. Morrison House and other buildings that are new, the Lorien, they fit into Old Town. It doesn't even relate to the structures around it. And I think that Shalom Baranis's architectural design work would have been perfect at Landmark. I wasn't kidding. I know people giggled at that, but I thought it would have been, people would have wanted to move there to Landmark, to be in something new and really interesting. But does it fit in the historic district of Old Town? I don't think so. So there was an opportunity to do something different. Thank you.
Mr. Yule, Mr. Donnelly, any response to that?
My response would be certainly over the years we have, for many of the economic development, both residential and office development projects, I think have been appropriate and thoughtful. They fit into the neighborhood. Certainly with opportunities, missed opportunities in terms of doing more transit-oriented development, both around the Van Doren Metro Station and the the Braddock Road Metro Station. Fortunately, WMATA and the community and the city's planning department are undergoing a process right now to reopen the discussions about doing some development at the Braddock Road Metro. The West Eisenhower planning process certainly will provide an opportunity to talk about more density at that station stop. Eisenhower Metro Station in and of itself is a proven success story in terms of not only what has happened in the past, but what's happening even today, in addition with the National Science Foundation coming online. But I also want to remind the Vice Mayor in terms of, her advocacy for all of this more open space and lawns and so forth. The waterfront plan that they passed the City Council on a 6-to-1 vote had 40% increase in open space, and that that planning process was a more than a 40-year community engagement process that certainly had a lot of give and take on the part of the not just the residents in Old Town, but the citizens throughout this great city. You had an opportunity to vote for that project to support more open space, but yet I keep hearing you talk about trees, open space, this and that. We need more and more and more. We're going to have 40% more open space on the waterfront, in addition to more passive and recreational uses. A vista that's open. The success of striking a deal with the Old Dominion Boat Club to relocate them off the foot of King Street, to open that area up to a plaza and then shift them a few blocks over, and they're still going to be on the waterfront. I think these are all good things in terms of appropriate type development and redevelopment, but yet you found that in your mind that was not the appropriate type of development and things to be doing.
Mr. Donnelly?
Very quickly, I think the best example of quality development that we have in the city is actually the Carlisle area near the King Street and Eisenhower metro stations. This was the first opportunity that the city had for true mixed-use, transit-oriented development. And if you look at it today, major commercial office with the Patent and Trademark Office, but also the law firms and the consultants and the engineers that also have relocated there to be part of the Carlisle area. There's a fair amount of both condominium home ownership opportunities as well as multifamily rental opportunities, and a growing portion of retail and restaurants that are there to serve not only the people who work there but also the people who live there. And I think that's the best example that we have for transit-oriented good sound development. If you look throughout the region, you'll see other examples. Clarendon comes to mind, and let's face it, a lot of the millennials, and I'm a parent of some millennials, they want to be close to work, they want to be close to recreation, they want to be close to their homes, they want mass transit, and many do not own cars, and those are the kinds of development that we need to, number one, foster in the city, and I think we do have opportunities at Braddock Road, we have opportunities at West Eisenhower, there's more capacity at Carlisle as well as Potomac Yard. Those are going to be our development opportunities. Years and years ago, well before I was first elected to the council, the Eisenhower Valley was seen as the economic engine that will drive Alexandria's future, and we're starting to realize that. Certainly at Carlisle, I think there are opportunities, but that's where we need to focus our energies and our attentions in terms of our strategies for attracting new businesses and commercial. But it's that mixed-use, transit-oriented development that's what's going to be successful, not only today, but for years to come.
Could I just very quickly,
yeah.
As far as the waterfront plan, with all due respect, Mr. Mayor, that voting, I sought a compromise, and I believe you know that. Originally the waterfront plan called for 4 hotels, then 3, then 2. So there's some people who wanted 0, and I said we should just do 1. And as far as open space, I fully support that, and that's why I put forward the Alexandria Parks Foundation, and we voted for it unanimously. But you've kind of stifled it every step of the way, but we did vote for it. And as far as open space, we're, according to the Park and Rec Commission, we're about 180 acres behind in terms of our density right now. So setting aside 15% in Potomac Yard when it was 200 to 250 acres wouldn't have killed us, and in fact, it would have made it even more cherished by the residents. Furthermore, the waterfront plan, we can't widen our streets in Old Town. We don't want to ruin the goose that laid the golden egg there. And so too much too much development would ruin it.
Finish your thought.
Thank you.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's good.
I think we got
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
You wanna
No,
take a shot. I'm next.
I forgot what I was going to say now, because there's a lot to say. First and foremost, Vice Mayor Silverberg, I did not stifle along the way your idea, suggestion to want to have a open space foundation or dedication. I mean, that was, you discussed it, you raised it, but there was no second to the motion. Actually, I don't even know if it was a motion. There was no second to it or anything. But the reality is that the city, through a study that was done more than 10 years ago now on open space throughout the city, it indicated that the city needed to have and acquire and identify at least 100 acres of open space throughout the city over the next 10, 15 years. We far have exceeded that requirement, I mean, that goal. We have more open space today than the 100 acres that was needed, and that's the primary reason why the City Council did away with the dedicated open space funds, because we no longer needed to do it. It's actually being afforded to us by new development that comes online, but more importantly, as we continue to renovate, remodel, and build new school buildings, we can get more open space opportunities at our school sites as well. And so, but the way you get things done on the City Council is by teamwork, and you got to build consensus, and you just don't sit at a council meeting and throw ideas out there and then expect to, for it to happen. And what with regards to your concept about the Open Space Foundation, my response to you at the time was that, first and foremost, we already have an opportunity and a process in place for anyone that wants to donate to the city for open space or anything else they want to do. There was no need to create a new entity or organization. And so what I had said to you, as this was part of the discussion about the Park and Recreation's new green space, I think, initiative, was that that was something that we could just continue to work towards, but that was not an opportunity, or to accuse me of an opportunity to stifle your discussion and debate about that initiative, and so just want to go on record for that.
Quickly, Mr. Dunn.
I know quickly, but everybody else is getting their chance at their bite at the apple here. All right, couple of things. Number one, as it pertains to the waterfront plan, and one of the most important public benefits of the waterfront plan is unfettered public access along the waterfront. And you know, I supported that when I was on the council, certainly support it today. But in some respects, and the waterfront is for everyone, it really is. But in some respects, actions speak louder than words. You know, there's one person up here who you know, worked to set aside 61 acres of park and open space at Cameron Station, you know, which is a wonderful community out in the city's west end, and I was happy, along with Councilwoman Pepper, to lead that charge. You know, there's one person up here that negotiated a settlement with the Woodrow Wilson Bridge that led to the Witter Fields off of Duke Street, which are you know, turf fields that are being utilized, two soccer fields and a softball field that are being utilized, you know, by young and old alike. You know, when I was the mayor, we did have a 1 cent set aside for on the tax rate to acquire park and open space. I mean, you know, so in some respects, I think it's good to discuss ideas and to look at going forward, but I think it's also important to look at the past records and the records of accomplishment in terms of who's done what.
I want to keep this moving just because chamber members submitted questions individually for each candidate, and I wanted to get to the question for Mr. Yule here. Mr. Yule, this is the way the question is written. Metro is a mess. It has hundreds of millions in receivables it cannot collect. It cannot currently meet its debt payments without extensions from lenders. You're on the WMATA board. You're vice chair of the finance committee. Do you bear some responsibility for this?
No, I don't. As a matter of fact, I will be the first to say, I mean, I think we wouldn't be in the mess if I was the CEO or...
the job's open, by the way. I mean...
I love my job as mayor, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But the fact that remains is that WMATA's financial situation is a result of lack of dedicated funding, plain and simple. And that is not something, that's not new news. This is something that I've been saying, not just myself, but the rest of the board for more than the last 10, 15 years. All the more reason why the WMATA board, through lobbying the local jurisdictions and the states, the District of Columbia, D.C., and Maryland, Virginia, we moved forward and got approval by respective legislative bodies to appropriate $50 million annually for 7 years to help WMATA meet its financial obligations. But in addition, that $150 million from those these three states, totaling $150 million, had to be matched by the federal government, and the federal government stepped up to the plate and agreed to match that $150 million. So that is how we generate additional funds as part of that's a short-term solution, as I mentioned, for only 7 years, and that's almost nearing expiration. As a matter of fact, Congress, through a House subcommittee just recently, last week, reduced that their $150 million to something like less than half that amount, and that congressional delegations, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, are actually fighting that to get those funds restored. But we do need a permanent source of dedicating funding to the system. The financial situation that the board that came to the attention of the board in the past 60 or 90 days was a result of the staff failure to comply with filing the required documents to the Federal Transit Administration to get reimbursed for grants and funds that for projects that had been approved and authorized. And so we, as board members, and again, you know, while we're unpaid and part-time, we had board meetings at WMATA on Thursdays from 9 in the morning morning to maybe 3, 4 o'clock in the evening. And again, I'm a volunteer member to that board. And as a matter of fact, the board meeting last Thursday went from 9 in the morning till after 5 p.m. And so if we were paid board members, or paid or not, but certainly if board members had more time to dedicate and be more engaged, just like, you know, even on city council, folks assume that members of city council are full-time and fully paid. We're volunteers. We barely make a penny an hour or less than a penny an hour for all the services and time that we commit to to do our jobs. But the reality is that there are going to always be times and opportunities when you're not full-time and have responsibility for 100% of the oversight and management, that things are going to happen. And unfortunately, this was brought to the board's attention, like I said, within the past 90 days. But WMATA has, through a new CFO that came on board about less than 60 days ago, is in the process of actually correcting the situation to the extent that we've renegotiated lines of credits with 2 of the major lenders, and we repaid one of the lines of credits to a bank just last week for about $100 million. And we got good news last Thursday that the Federal Transit Administration is in the process of now releasing and paying to the authority more than $100 million of funds. It was about $400 million that they were withholding because the agency now has partially come into compliance with some of the documentation that they require.
Any other candidates?
Yeah, I just want to.
Yeah, on Metro, please.
Right. WMATA is sort of like your cousin that has maxed out all their credit cards and almost all of your credit cards if you allowed them, and has borrowed and is barely able to make payments on the second mortgage line of credit or something. It's really, I'm glad that they worked out some of their lines of credit issues, but they made all the jurisdictions in the region very concerned that suddenly we were going to be facing some kind of huge burden. And really, obviously, WMATA needs a dedicated stream of revenue. All other major transit entities in the country have that, except for ours. But in the meantime, they had borrowed so much money, and they weren't even going to be paying back what was owed. It was also just almost, if you will, the interest of the loan. It's unbelievable. And if I might just refer to one sentence.
No, we need to keep this on topic. You can work it into your closing argument.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. I want to remind everybody that we'll be collecting questions now from Twitter. So if you want to get your questions in, it's hashtag quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. It's not the mayor's fault, and it's not any particular elected leader's fault, the problems with Metro. It does need a dedicated revenue stream. It's the only major transit system in the United States, the only one that doesn't have a dedicated revenue stream. You know, in most jurisdictions, it's usually a percentage of the sales tax, but it's predictable, and you know you're going to get it. And so if you're left to the whims of the appropriation process, either down in Richmond or Annapolis or in Washington, you're going to have problems in terms of your revenue streams, and in order to not defer maintenance, you're going to have to borrow money, and that becomes expensive. And you know, the problem is that you know, we have never been able to come together as a region in terms of how we fund Metro. You know, district funds it one way, Maryland largely funds it from the state, we fund it from the state, but also at the local level with our general tax dollars, and then we have a regional Northern Virginia gas tax that goes towards Metro capital as well. But the only way to solve the problem, and in many respects you get what you pay for, the only way you're going to solve the problem is to enact some type of region-wide dedicated revenue stream that will go to both capital and operating expenses for Metro.
Okay, just a reminder again, send your questions in, hashtag ACOC debate. Just one quick question here. We'll start with you, Mr. Donnelly. What's your opinion about building lights at the athletic complex at T.C. Williams?
Lights? Yeah, it's largely a school board issue. I mean, they own the land, so it will be a school board issue. And you know, in order for the council to consider it, you know, that's going to have to be an initiative that's brought forward, you know, by the school system. Conceptually, I do support lights at T.C. Williams. I think that you know, we're one of the only jurisdictions that has a high school that doesn't have lighted facility. I don't believe it's a budget priority. I think we have a lot of other priorities with our schools, particularly capacity, that need to be addressed before lights at TC, you know, are even contemplated. But I think as a you know, community, you know, priority, I think it's time that you know, in terms of lights, the technology can actually shield a lot of the lights. All you got to do is go to like Yorktown High School that has lights, and they've got a residential area right next door, and there is no bleed over in terms of the lights. I don't believe that the issue is lights. I believe the issue is actually noise, and the noise that's generated at athletic events. And I think because the schools own that particular property, they can control when and what gets scheduled there. But you know, in terms of community use, I think you can limit the community use, and certainly no amplified sound for community use, and limited amplified sound for high school usage. And you know, the technology exists today to improve that, but conceptually, I do support lights at T.C. Williams, and I don't think we should, you know, be treating our high school and our high school athletes, and in some respects the band and all those other activities, as second-class citizens.
Ms. Silverberg, lights at T.C. Williams.
Well, I love sports. Everybody knows that about me. But the fact is that when when the new version of T.C. Williams was built, there was a promise made to the neighboring community, and it's in writing. It's not just a handshake, which would be good enough for me, but it's actually a condition, and that is that they would not put in lights at the football field. So the fact is that the neighbors are deeply concerned about the impact on their lives, but the fact is that it's a condition, and they are actually very concerned about the noise currently. I just had an email exchange with someone who lives right over there, and they're concerned that the speaker system points towards their neighbor, towards their homes. And I asked the school board if they could turn the sound system away from the homes, but apparently it's going to have to wait. I think if it can be done now, they should go ahead and do it now. The lights, it's a promise, and we're only as good as our word, and that should be good enough. Thank you.
Mr. Yule.
Well, T.C. Williams is my alma mater, and certainly would like to accommodate opportunities to have the football stadium not only have lights, but have the appropriate sound system, and be appropriately utilized to blend into the adjacent community. Having said that, and Mayor Donnelly is absolutely correct that it's a school board matter, and we've had dialogue and conversation with the school board. The school board has, over the past probably more than a year now, have had ongoing community engagement to undertake this process. I believe it's something that the school board will be finalizing, if not before they recess at the end of this current school year when they reconvene on their next session. But it's not currently in their budget, their capital improvement budget, nor is it in the city council's budget. So how to pay for it and finance it certainly is the big issue and the question of the day, and I agree that there are other priorities ahead of trying to finance the lights. But I think also it's an opportunity, and we did look at an opportunity in terms of the Alexandria Sanitation Authority, Alexandria New now is their new name, to look at that new field that's going to be built above the tanks there, to see if indeed we could perhaps play night football games or soccer games at that location. That was recently considered, brought to the city council. We had staff and a city council conversation, discussion about it. The recommendation, conclusion by Parks and Recs and others was that that's not an appropriate and safe site to have night football games or any type of games that required lights or bleachers, and actually that facility would not even have bleachers because you can't fit them on site. But I think we have another opportunity here as we continue to look at the projected school enrollments through the long-range planning process, that calls for the fact that the high school currently is already nearing capacity, if not at capacity. And mind you, that school opened less than 5 years ago with a projection enrollment of about 2,500 to take care of the future capacity. And we've already exceeded, we're coming close to meeting that or exceeding it, in addition to the fact that there are 1,000 ninth graders that are over at the T.C. Williams campus at Minnie Howard. And so that just goes to show you that when people say, well, what's happening in the public schools in Alexandria, good things are happening. Our enrollment is picking up and so forth. So the need is going to be there, and the school board is, as part of the long-range planning process, which I serve on that, committee as well. You know, we're talking about not only do we need to build an expansion or addition to Minnie Howard, the ninth grade center, but quite possibly we may need to be looking at down the road the need to build another high school. And so if that opportunity is indeed there, that I think is where we should focus all of our attention in terms of do we need to have lights at not only the current T.C. Williams, but perhaps another new high school, or do we, wherever we, and when we build this new high school, do we design and build that so that that can be the central facility location where all football games for the public school system can be played under lights, or football games or any athletic event played under lights. And so I think, you know,
Please finish your thought, Mr. Yule.
While the opportunity, a need is there, certainly I think we need to make those decisions based on what's appropriate and reasonable.
I received a request for a question about the West End. Ms. Silverberg, do you support the use of tax increment financing or other city assistance to spur development at the Landmark Mall?
Well, Landmark Mall, I certainly support redeveloping it. We voted for it unanimously about 2 years ago. This has recently come to our attention that the developer is having problems financially, and they are asking us for help. And I asked Mark Jinks, and as we were leaving executive session, and I'll share this, it's fine to share this, have we ever done this before, this particular set of tax incremental financing? And he said, not this specific way of doing things. No, this would have been a first. So it's still under consideration. I'm surprised that there's a question about it, frankly, but since you brought it up. One of my closest friends in Dallas works for Howard Hughes, the company that is developing the site, and she's in charge of their marketing, I believe. And so in the initial vote, that was fine because it was just a vote to bring it forward. But now that there's money on the table that we would have to especially put forward, I'm definitely going to have to recuse myself. So, but I definitely, in general, support doing something at Landmark Mall as soon as possible and doing something really special and wonderful. Thank you.
Mr. Donnelly?
One of the biggest problems I think that is associated with the redevelopment of Landmark is it's bifurcated ownership. I mean, Howard Hughes owns the center section of the mall. Sears owns their store in the automotive center. Macy's owns their store, and you know, it's associated parking. I mean, so that's really been the biggest problem, is you can't get all the landowners together to come up with a comprehensive plan. And you know, while I think that this particular proposal is for tax increment financing for the center portion of the mall, you know, quite frankly, I don't think I could support tax increment financing for a partial development. You know, if somebody wants to come forward with a comprehensive plan that gets us what we need at Landmark, rather than just sort of halfway there, you know, I'd consider it. But you know, for just, you know, to redevelop the mall for some additional housing and to create an outdoor mall, given the competitive aspects of Potomac or of Pentagon City to the and Pentagon City to the north and Springfield Mall to the south, I would question, you know, an outdoor retail mall's viability, number one, and thus I would question, you know, our wisdom in devoting tax dollars towards that project. So I think the only way I would support tax increment financing would be for a comprehensive development program that would include both the Macy's site and the Sears site.
Mr. Yule.
Tax increment financing, known as TIF, certainly is a financing tool that has been utilized by other municipalities and other entities like WMATA. We've utilized it many, many times in terms of financing for our transit system. However, Mr. Donnelly is absolutely correct that the way the landmark property is divided between three ownerships, it makes it difficult and challenging to try to be convinced that making some type of financing like TIF available to Howard Hughes Corporation just to redevelop that center portion is ideally the right thing to be doing. However, I think it's worthy of having conversation, and that hasn't formally come forward to the City Council just yet. As a matter of fact, it's been very lightly discussed even with the staff. But the real deal for me is that Howard Hughes came on after they purchased Landmark Mall from the General Growth companies out of bankruptcy several years ago. They came to us as gangbusters and said, you know what, we really are serious about redeveloping this mall. And when they came, and I say gangbusters, they met with me as the mayor and city manager and planning director, and they said, but we really need your help. I said, what is it you need from us? They said, we want to make certain that the planning process, the support process by staff is in place, because we want to build exactly what's already been approved, and we want to do it like now. And I said, music to my ears, let's do it. Well, guess what? It hadn't happened. They missed the ball in terms of the economy. I warned them then. I said, look, if you don't get this project moving, then it's going to be too late. Pentagon City was already, and it still is undergoing renovation. Springfield Mall was threatened to be shut down and actually maybe going to bankruptcy, but certainly something was going to happen there. I said, if you don't move now, you're going to miss a golden opportunity, and you won't be able to get the type of retailers that you want into the mall. Well, guess what? They missed that opportunity. Then they've come in, they've asked to do less commercial retail, more residential, and everything else. And so while I certainly, and we all want to see something happen at the mall, and their plan is coming to the City Council maybe before recess at the end of June. If not June, then we'll see it in September when we reconvene in the fall. But the reality is that before I commit to providing a TIF package for them, I really want to see more broadly what their commitment dedication is going to be in terms of making the development happen. And this is long, long overdue. Many of you may remember in 2003, right after I became mayor, General Growth came in and said, hey, we want to just redo this whole mall. We had a big presentation in the mall, and TV cameras and press and everything, and it didn't happen. Again, not beyond the control of the City Council, city government, and the citizens, but it's all part of what happens in our economic market.
This question just came in. We'll start with you, Mr. Donnelly. What do you envision as a viable solution to resolve the current inadequate supply of low and moderate income housing inventory?
The major source of affordable housing, and in some cases it's workforce housing, that we've seen in the city over the decades is actually the result of federal programs. Most of it is actually due to what were called HUD 236 mortgages. It was cheap money that was given to home builders and apartment builders to build affordable housing, and it had to remain affordable for the period of time until the mortgage was repaid, typically 30 to 40 years. There was a lot of that occurred in actually the 1960s, and that led to a lot of the affordable housing that we saw in the city of Alexandria. The vice mayor made mention of the fact that we lost a lot of affordable housing, 8,000 to 10,000 units, and it's because those mortgages were repaid, and the covenant or the requirement to maintain them as affordable went away as well. So they shifted to market rate housing.
So yes, it's great to have 800 affordable housing units guaranteed at Beauregard, but we had a delta of 1,600 units. So you can multiply 1,600 units times 2, 3, or 4 residents, and you can see that we are losing a diversity of folks in the city, as a result of these kinds of decisions, I just felt that, and I still feel, that we should have negotiated harder. And I think the developer would have been open to it. And I think having worked for a developer for 3 years, I learned a lot, and one of the things I learned was they're not necessarily going to offer things. You have to be pushing them, and then they'll go for it. But they're in business, and I do think we need to partner with nonprofit developers and continue to work hard for that. And when we do that, though, it has to be fair, so that if you have a market rate building and an affordable housing building right next to each other, that they share amenities equally. And I think going forward we will. But in the recent past, we had a discussion about that at council, and it was pretty hard fought in terms of a swimming pool. So having been the chair of the Economic Opportunities Commission, serving on that for a total of 8 years, one of our primary areas of focus was affordable housing. And in order to have a diversified city, we have to have workforce housing. And I agree that, you know, it's mainly a federal and state financed issue, but we as a city can make it a top priority even more than we have, and emphasize to the developers as they come forward, so that we have more negotiation with them about that.
Mr. Yule.
Well, for someone who grew up in public housing here in the city, certainly I have both a passion and empathy for the need for more affordable housing opportunities for our residents. But it's not, you know, the dynamics have changed. It's no longer affordable housing because it's a misnomer. People think affordable housing is for poor people, but what we really are talking about today is housing affordability, to make certain that we have housing options available at every income level. And when we really talk about workforce housing, or housing in particular to sustain and maintain our diversity, which is so important because we cherish the diversity in this great city, is to make certain that our middle income families have an opportunity to live here, work here, participate, have their kids to attend our school system. And middle income of the folks are our white collar workers, our teachers, our public safety officers. These are the folks that we want to make certain that opportunities are afforded to them to live and work here in the city. I want to thank Mr. Donnelly for giving me credit when he talked about being innovative, and that's exactly what we need to be doing in terms of addressing this very dire need. And it's not a need that's localized to Alexandria. It's regional, it's national, it's international. And so when the Potomac Yard was evolving in the planning process, and the city manager and I as the mayor were meeting with the developers on and our planning staff almost every 2 or 3 weeks to get a status update on the project. The developer, Pulte, had already committed and agreed that they would provide up to $10 million worth of affordable housing units in that development. And then the fire marshal and the fire chief said, well, you know, this is going to be like a whole new community. We're going to have office buildings, residential, hotel, and this and that. We need a fire station. And no one could argue the need for a fire station. And I said, great, okay, we can do a fire station. And then, but something said, alarm went off my head, said, hey, you better ask the developer about what's the status of affordable housing, because the developer said, I'll provide the land for the fire station, and we'll give you $9 million to help build the fire station. And then I asked that question, and the developer said, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, but you know, we can't do the affordable housing anymore. I said, excuse me? Long pause. You're not going to do the affordable housing. You're committed to it. We're committed. We have to have this is not going to be a development that's going to be all luxury homes. And so he said, well, I don't see how we can do it. I said, guys, let's think out of the box. Let's be innovative here. Let's be visionaries. And so I said, yes, we need the fire station. I said, but how about building units above the fire station? Everybody laughed at me, and I said, well, you know, I'm going to get up and walk away, but I think it can be done. And they said, sir, what do you mean? I said, you know, people that work at the fire department, don't they live in the station? Don't they live above it or on the side? Yes, but they work there. Well, workforce housing, affordable housing, let's be innovative. I said, I'm going to leave. Call me when you have a plan of action. About 3 weeks later, I get the phone call, said, we want to meet. I said, I will meet with you only if you have a plan of action. I go to the meeting, and voila, design of a fire station, Mr. Mayor, not 70, but 64 units of house apartments above the fire station in Potomac Yard, 24 workforce housing, the other 24 workforce/market rate, and the other units are affordable. And so I said, see, I told you we can do it, and that's what we have there today. And that's what we need to be doing moving forward in terms of being innovative, because there are no more federal dollars and funds available, and the opportunity to do affordable housing or housing affordability is going to be very tight on us. But again, it's something that we have to continue to work with the developers as they come forward through the SUP process to make sure we get what we need. But more importantly, opportunities will be there when you can have more density around your metro stations and give what we call bonus density to the developers so that they have more opportunities to build more affordable or workforce housing units within that total development.
Please finish your thoughts.
It's no longer easy to do, but certainly it's a commitment that as mayor, I would encourage not only the city council but the citizens to continue to support and advocate.
We're going to move now to closing statements. Same rules applies as opening statements, 3 minutes per candidate. We'll start with you, Mr. Donnelly.
Okay. I want to thank, again, the Chamber for hosting the event. I want to thank all of you who came out and witnessed our debate. This is a real critical election. Actually, all politicians say their election is critical, but this is important. As I mentioned at the start of this evening, our revenue base is not growing. Basically, our revenue base is growing about 2% a year. Our expenses are growing about 4% a year. And this has been going on for about 8 years. And it's the structural deficit that I think, threatens our financial viability. I've outlined some specific plans, but I want to let you, the citizens of our city, really sort of understand what it means. The most glaring example that I can think of is, our new West End fire station, which was built for $15 million, and we don't have the funds to fully equip it and staff it. Now, the mayor and the vice mayor had about 4 years to come up with a plan, and I know that they've devoted $1.5 million to it this year, but it's not fully equipped and it's not fully staffed. And it was put there for the right reasons. Response time in the west end of Alexandria was about 5.5 minutes, and we needed to get it down to 3. Mutual aid calls, most of the calls that were coming in under mutual aid were coming from Fairfax County and from Arlington, because we didn't have the facilities there. Over half of our citizens live in the west end of the city. It's served by 3 fire stations, so it was put there for the right reasons, and we don't have the revenue to do it, to fully staff it and equip it. That's like building a library and not buying the books. Well, I think this is an embarrassment to the city, but more importantly, I think it's a threat to the public safety of our residents, particularly those in the West End. I've offered some specific ideas about, how I think we need to enhance our revenue base, whether it's, quality, smart growth development at Potomac Yards, rebranding and attracting new businesses and exciting businesses to the Carlisle area, which is going to be the home of the National Science Foundation, already the successful home for the Patent and Trademark Office. I think we've been through a good community engaged planning process at West Eisenhower, but I think that we can't afford to wait 20 years for it to build out in an interim plan very similar to the successful Potomac Yard Retail Center would be good at West Eisenhower, where it can be supported by a metro station and 2 interchanges with the Beltway. Again, I think we have to arrive at what our common objectives are going to be and move forward. I want to again thank you for coming out tonight. I appreciate you being here, and I ask for your vote on June the 9th. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ewell.
Well, thank you very much, and for everyone for coming out tonight and participating and observing this debate. But certainly, I want to give thanks to the engaged citizenry that we have here in this city, our hardworking staff, and an open and transparent government. But more importantly, the sound physical stewardship and inclusive leadership that has been provided not only by me as the mayor, but working with my colleagues on city council and all of you. We're making a difference in Alexandria, and that's really what this is about. I have loved serving as the mayor of this great city for the past 13 years. We've made history together despite the challenges that we've faced, and I've mentioned some of those to you in terms of the recession. Mr. Donnelly keeps making reference to the past 8 years, but you know, the past 8 years have not been the glorious times in our economy. If they were, I mean, I don't think we would be having the debate and the conversation that up here. But not only has these hard economic times impacted the city of Alexandria, it's impacted every city, municipality in this Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C. metropolitan area and across this country. And yes, could things have been better? Much better, but we have been able to weather the storm, and we're better off as a result. This city, through my leadership, this city and this government has been well managed, and certainly we are well governed, and that's important in terms of our success moving forward. I don't think the city and the citizens want this government, this city to go backwards. I certainly don't, and that's why I'm asking for your vote and support to re-elect me as mayor for a 5th consecutive term. Certainly, we have a lot of work to do, and but more importantly, as we move forward, my vision for the city is to continue to work to diversify our revenue base, but to be innovative in terms of how we do that, to address the infrastructure issues and challenges that we face, and again, whether it's the sewers, whether it's certainly making certain that the Metro Station Potomac Yard is approved and the construction commences, but more importantly, supporting, continue to support education for meeting the needs of a growing enrollment here in the city of Alexandria, and make certain that pre-K initiatives and STEM and all those other challenge opportunities are made affordable to all of our children, because that's so important. Workforce development is huge. Again, that's a conversation that we have had at COG more recently in terms of how do we not only work to diversify the revenue base that cities and towns face, but to meet the challenge of a growing workforce and making certain that we have the right jobs in the right place at the right time. And so I want to do all that while protecting our environment and being and sustainability, because that's so important to all of us. So again, when people ask me, you know, why are you running again? I say, 1, because I love the job, and then 2, because I don't sleep, and I want to be able to continue to work on your behalf. God bless you, and I'd love to have your vote and support on June 9th.
Ms. Silverberg, the last word is yours.
Thank you. Well, even if you are, as our mayor currently, I encourage you to sleep. So thank you all for coming out, and thanks to the Chamber, of course, and thanks to Drew Hansen. It's good to see you again. There are many issues that have been raised tonight. I thought these were great questions. As your mayor, of course, it is about our future. It's about how we want to go and what kind of a city that we envision, that our neighborhoods are still incredibly special and protected, and that we're not so densely populated that we can't even enjoy where we are, that the traffic is too much. So we have to plan very carefully. And of course, we'll have development on Eisenhower and in Potomac Yard, et cetera, and fill-in development, but it has to be careful, thoughtful, and appropriate, and development that protects our neighborhoods and quality of life. And our debt, that has just grown exponentially over the past decade. And we're going to have to face it together. And the old ways of doing things, where we're going to develop our way out of it, that really hasn't worked. We do have to develop, and we do have to grow the commercial tax base. It's growing the commercial tax base in a creative, innovative way. That's what we need to be doing. As far as, let me just talk about the Open Space Fund for a second. It was in the first budget cycle when, Mr. Mayor, with all due respect, that you got rid of the set-aside without discussion. That wasn't teamwork. And then as a council, we voted, and I was the lone dissenting vote. I wanted to keep that set-aside. We should have set another goal. And as the mayor, I think that we had it for 10 years, and we hit the goal of almost 100 acres, and we should set a new goal of 50 or 100 acres. That's visionary. It was good that we had it, and we should bring it back. It did some good, and it did a lot of good. And our schools, we've got to focus on academics and show our kids that we believe in them, but also be there for them in terms of mentoring and tutoring programs. And in terms of what kind of city that we want to be, we need more transparency and more openness. We need to bring you all into the process even more. And we need to listen to you so that when you come to council, you're shown the respect that you deserve. And as your mayor, I certainly would do that. And I thank you again for being here, and I ask for your vote on June 9th. Thank you.
That concludes our debate. A big hand for all the candidates, and thank you for coming out tonight.